Kevin, it is good to finally meet and have you on the podcast, man. How are you?
I'm doing okay. It is a balmy 53 degrees here in Southwest Florida, so it's a little, I'm not saying that, people are burning their furniture for warmth, but it's going to be that's next on the agenda. So if I die of a hacking cough halfway through this interview, you'll know what happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm doing all right. Other than that, everything's fine.
Good deal. Yeah, I was actually watching the national championship game last night. That was in Miami, and I started looking up the weather down there. I was like, what's the weather like in Florida? Which I know that's further south, but I was like, oh, we got 70s and 80s this week. Like, that must be nice.
It's all right. I'm actually right on the other side of the coast. I'm on the other coast, like almost straight from Miami.
Yeah.
And all my friends were cheering for the U, and I'm kind of like, yeah, I lived in Arizona back when Miami pulled their stunt with the camouflage and all that stuff. I'm like, no, I can't do it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you were like, go Hoosiers.
Yeah, Indiana's such a good story.
Awesome story. Yeah, I mean, one of the most fun seasons to follow in stories in a long time. So
Yeah,
I was rooting for them for sure. But no, Kevin, I've got your book right here. And let's see if I can get it unblurred.
There we go. Here we go. I'm not using.
Are you sending it? Yeah, there you go. I figured out the camera now. But no, thank you for sending this, man. When I was reading about it, it sounds like it could be a movie or a Netflix movie or something. I mean, just the way the story is. But man, just talk about your book and what led you, just the inspiration to write it and just some of the background to it.
Well, the inspiration for writing it was I'm a huge fan of Robert B. Parker. I've read all the stuff he's written, and reading that got me into John D. MacDonald and Raymond Chandler and all these great American storytellers who wrote about, guys trying to live in today's world without compromising their values. And they're great stories. But at some point, Parker and John D. MacDonald especially, it's like, yeah, this, that, and then we took off our clothes and jumped into bed. And I'm kind of like, whoop, time out, hang on.
Yeah.
Ian Fleming, another one of my favorite authors. When Fleming's on, he is on.
Yeah.
He's really good. But, and I'm a person of faith, and I'm like, can you write a book that has all that type of action and, daring do, but not have it, veer into that type of, behavior? I said, okay, let's find out. So that was about 5 years ago, and I kicked around some plot ideas and said, okay, I'm going to set it in Missouri, and then no, I'm going to have my hero be BORTAC, Border Patrol Tactical. They're scary people. They are probably the second in the civilian side of the federal government. They're probably number 2 after the hostage rescue team. But then I found out about this group called the Ranger Reconnaissance Company. They're part of the 75th Rangers, and they are considered a special mission unit by the Department of Defense, which means they get picked for the same units that SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force and all those crazy people in the ISA or whatever they're called now.
Yeah.
They're that level of trained and we use the word operatives. They are truly operatives.
Yeah.
And I like that. I'm going to make him that.
Yeah.
And then this I'd like say about 3 years or so I've been doing this. And then a friend of mine, John Gabriel, wrote his book, Sink the Rising Sun, which is a great book. It's a World War II fiction. But he started after I started, and he finished his first. And I'm kind of like, okay, you shamed me into it. So he finished his book in January. I sat down and I finished mine in August, and finally got it out in November.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. That's awesome. This is your first book published,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Did you ever think that you'd have a book published?
No, I never really thought about that. I never really considered myself that type of writer. I never really considered myself a writer, I got to be honest, up until recently. I've been a blogger since 2003. Blogging kind of went away, and I sold my first blog for a nice chunk of change, which was good. And then, started writing for ammoman.com full time. And then up until October of last year, I was writing for the NRA full time. And yeah, I never really considered myself a writer type person. I was a photographer for many years. I was doing internet marketing for many years, and then the opportunity to be a writer, I'm like, well, I'm doing it for free. I might as well get paid for it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you say blogger, to me that means you're a writer because that's more than I've ever written.
I tell you what, that was really, really good practice. I forget who said it first, but I remember reading once that blogging is intellectual prototyping.
Yeah.
And I went, yeah, it is. It's one of the biggest issues I have when I was hiring writers as the editor over at Shooting Illustrated was people making deadlines
Mhm.
because they're like, well, I'm waiting for inspiration. I'm like, yeah, yeah, no, just do
Yeah.
it. Inspiration comes later. you know. And I guess that comes back to my background because I originally trained to be a photojournalist.
Yeah.
And if you're sent off to photograph a high school basketball game, your photo editor needs prints, by 1 o'clock at night, or
Yeah.
you don't run.
That's
Period.
right. Yeah. Yeah. That entire space is really fascinating to me. I had another author on recently who was a part of the newspaper in Missouri, actually Kansas City, and his book actually kind of talks about just kind of the transition of the printing press and how all that's changed over the last really 10 years, maybe a little bit
Oh yeah,
longer from dead, but it talks about deadlines and sports, and it's just kind of written in a fiction way to where it's at today. And I learned a lot because as a kid, I looked forward to the newspaper every single day.
sure.
Always wanted the sports section, so I was outside looking for the paper. I'd always get mad if whoever threw it like in the grass where I had to go get it. I'm like, "Can you hit the driveway?" But I just love talking to people who have been in that space and they're talking about blogging, different ways of writing. Like I've always, I guess, been a consumer. I've never seen the actual work and process that goes on and just the mentioned deadlines and just all of that comes with it. I learn a lot about it, and I find it really fascinating.
It is honestly the best way if you want to be a writer. I can't think of a better way to do it. Write. Writers write. Our friend Larry Correa, he puts out 3,000 words a day.
Crazy, right?
That's staggering. I'm like, okay, good for it. Larry doesn't do things by halves.
Yeah.
He's just that type of person.
Yeah. Yeah. No, well, this is awesome. Well, now that you've put out, a book, and I know it's new and you're getting it out there, and it's such an honor to spotlight it and talk with you about it. Now that you've done this, do you foresee yourself maybe writing a series or writing additional books now that you've kind of gotten the process and I don't know, has it been motivating in a way to do more?
Yeah, when I started this, I didn't really. My background in a lot of this is, I was a tabletop role play gamer for years, and I did it so much I took grade 11 twice. So,
Makes
but
for a
when
good
you,
story, you know?
yeah, yeah, when you do that though, and as the dungeon master or the game master, you say, okay, here's the environment. Okay, guys, respond to the environment now. I'm going to respond to you. Blah 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 blah. It's interactive fiction, is what it is. It's the original interactive fiction, and that's kind of my writing style. I'm not one of those people that has a 75-point bullet list of everything that happens like that. I said, okay, here's the overarching idea on how I want things to go, and then I just kind of started writing and let the characters kind of go. Like, well, I didn't expect that to happen, but yeah, I could see how it goes.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, yeah, I actually have an idea. I started writing the second one this month.
Awesome.
The sequel is called Absolution,
Okay.
and the third one is going to be called Redemption. So I have this character arc going through,
Yeah.
and I also came up with an idea for a young adult series, totally different than this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love to be a full time
Yeah.
writer once again. That would be
That's
cool.
awesome. Yeah, so you've got plans. You've already got works started, which is
Yeah.
incredible. I find that's awesome because I was actually talking to an author recently, and I was talking to him about a book series and just like how he has seen writing, like his writing process, has it changed over time? Because he's been writing for a little bit longer, and he was explaining to me that he's like, when I sit down to write, what I write right now, if I put that off till tomorrow, whatever I write tomorrow could be different than what my
Yep.
idea is today. So he's like,
Yep.
stories, when you're writing them, he's like, it's interesting because you may look at like in your case, book 2, book 3, what's going on in your life, what's going on in the world, it could have an effect on the way that
Oh
you
yeah.
construct your story. And I know some people, they try to plan it out, and you were saying kind of complete opposite for you. You kind of let it flow. It's going to be really interesting to see kind of what you create and kind of where it leads to. Again, just based off life and events, and from book 1 through book 3, what that looks like.
Yeah. I honestly didn't have I knew I wanted to end the book with a shootout in the city, kind of like Heat or Sicario. I knew I
Yeah,
wanted to do that.
Sicario's awesome, by the way. Love that.
It's a great movie. I mean,
Yeah,
it's Denis Villeneuve. I mean, come on, and
yeah, love it.
Heat's Michael Mann. Come on, you're talking two of the best directors out there. Um, I knew I wanted to do that, and I knew I wanted to use it, not just any Mexican drug gang, but a specific one, La Familia Michoacana, or the Knights Templars, they're also known as, because they were one of the most vicious of all the groups out there, number one. Number two, they were a quasi-religious order as well. They were, they're kind of sort of gone away for the most part. They got wiped out by the other gangs. The new Jalisco cartel kind of runs that area now. But I'm like, man, that is just a weird, goofy thing. I'm like, oh, okay, I want to make those the bad guys because they fit well. But yeah, you know, I I knew that was going to happen, and then I was writing the book, and I'm like, okay, and I want the reveal to be this, and then I'm browsing the internet, and I don't want to spoil it too much, but there was an article on how the cartels are moving on to other different things besides drugs. I mean, that's how it's going to be. That's what they're going to do. I mean, that was like literally 2 weeks before I wrote, the final 10 chapters.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So yeah, that's you were getting inspiration literally like up to the minute,
Oh yeah.
of writing. That's incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It just I let it was a much better ending than just okay, and that's when the drugs showed up. It's like, yeah, everybody does that.
Yeah.
That's why I chose Ranger Recon for my hero versus like a Navy SEAL or something like that. Because
Yeah.
everybody does that one. It's like let's do
Yeah.
something different.
Well, and then when you write that way too, you're not going against and fighting your creativity. You're letting your creativity kind of dictate the path instead of like trying to narrow that in and stay within a rigid idea that maybe you had months ago. I feel like it's much better when you just kind of let that creativity run and get organized as you go.
Yeah, you just touched a sore nerve there. Because I'm a person of faith,
Yeah.
the big thing is you have to write a Christian novel. I'm like, no, no, you write a good novel.
Yeah.
And if you're good at it, your faith will pop up. You read
Love
like a
that.
John D. MacDonald book. I mean, Kurt Vonnegut said he's one of the best authors ever. And if Kurt Vonnegut says that, it's probably true. But you read one of his books and, there's probably, a good tenth of it is him pontificating about life and stuff like that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, if he gets to do it, why can't I?
Yeah.
I was on another podcast actually that ended short because it was on, Christian fiction for guys. Perfect for me, right? And then I mentioned, yeah, well, there's swearing in my book. I can't talk about that. Why not? Oh, well, because this is clean. I'm like, um, would you, I look at it this way. One of my heroes always has been for years before the American recordings, long before that, was Johnny Cash.
Johnny
Huge,
Cash.
huge fan ever since I can remember listening to music.
Yeah.
And if you look at Johnny Cash's life, it is not a clean life.
Nope.
He dealt with addiction to pills. He had a messy divorce. He smoked, he cussed.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's a person in the world would say that Johnny isn't a Christian.
Yeah.
And so I don't see that. I don't think I'm doing my readers or me a favor if I sanitize the world as it is.
Yeah.
The world is what it is, and
Yeah.
we have to deal with it. And if you live your life that you never hear people swearing, I like get out of your bubble.
Yeah. No, I could not agree more with that, Kevin. That's what you said. I completely agree with.
Yeah.
Trying to mask reality is, I don't know. You can't do it. You can try, but that's not probably the best route to go. So I appreciate that you take that approach to your book because it makes it that much more real and better. And
Yeah.
like you said, does your readers justice.
Well, and does I couldn't write it any other way. I couldn't see, because I'm not served in the military, but I've been around. I've been around every people from who served in Delta Force, to people who were pogues in the in the back. So and they all have one thing in common. They all use the F-bomb like a comma,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? So it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, some more people, okay, don't do it as much as that, but you're around that, you know, and then you can't really have, you know, a Mexican drug gang, you know, say, gosh, shucky darn gee
Yeah.
willikers,
Darn it.
you know, it's part of life. I'm not necessarily, you know, the best part, but I don't want to hide what life is like and you know, hide behind this little bubble that I have. You know,
Yeah.
we have to deal with the world as it is, not the way we want it to be.
That's right. That's right. I'm curious, Kevin, because I've never written a book, and you've written
One,
different ways in the past, but the first book.
right?
What's the I kinda just wanna know your feelings, like, once it's out and the world's people are reading it, you're starting to do podcasts and conversations, and, like, what's the best part about that? What's some of the rewards that you just like, "Man, I'm so glad I did this because now I'm able to do this." Like, just what's
Yeah,
some of the
yeah.
benefits and positive things that have come from this?
Well, it ain't the money.
Yeah,
That you know, yeah,
I've learned most people don't make much, if anything, in publishing a
yeah.
book.
You know, I haven't. Uh, I'm a little bit. You know, it was interesting in that I'm not unknown online. You know, people. Uh, I've been around, you know, for gosh, 20 years. The blog that I had, we got mentions from you know, National Review and Rush Limbaugh and CNN and stuff like that. So
Wow.
we were known.
Yeah,
And so I mentioned to these people who had in the past, you know, posted my stuff. Hey, I got a book now. Crickets. Like,
yeah,
ah, okay, yeah, fine, okay, great. Um, I think the most satisfying thing is just when people tell me it's well written and they like reading it.
yeah,
You
enjoyed it.
know, I don't do this, you know, I do this to fill the aching hole in my soul. I don't necessarily do it, you know, for the fame and fortune, although that would be nice.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say no. I have my price and it is very low.
It won't take much for me to be excited.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I love that. No, I'm always curious, like, the motivation. You obviously spent the time to put the work in and were disciplined to get the story put together and published. So, that
Quasi
in it
disciplined. Yeah,
yeah, but that in itself, I'm sure when you were done, we're like, "Man, I did this. Like, I put this
that
together,
felt
it's out
good.
there."
Yeah, yeah. You know, I have a fragile ego. You know, I will admit that. You know, like I like people telling me I do good things. So
Yeah. As we
there
all
is that.
we'd be
Yeah,
lying if we said differently, probably.
you know, that's probably the number one motivation is just saying, you know, hey, that was really good. I really enjoyed reading that. When people tell me that, that just means the world to me. You know,
Yeah,
I obsessively read the reviews on Amazon. You
yeah,
know, like, ooh, who gave me that 3 star? I want their name and I want their address.
yeah. I wanna talk about
Stuff like
this.
that. So it's it's fun. You know, it's just a different way of expression. And you can't be. For me, it's like you can't be a writer unless you're a reader. And to join that same group as my heroes, it's like, wow, you know, like when I was a firearms writer, you know, I would read stuff from like, you know, Masada Ayub and Tom Givens and all these insanely good instructors, people who've been around for years.
Yeah.
And now my stuff is showing up in the same magazines as their stuff. And it's like,
Pretty cool.
okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's kind of cool. As a friend of mine said, you know, keep at it till your idols become your rivals.
Yeah.
I like that attitude.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Because that means you climbed up and got to their level. I like that a lot, actually. That's a good quote. I've never heard that before, but that's one I think I'm gonna write down and look at that because I like that. You said something, you said, you can't be a writer unless you're a reader, which kinda leads to a question I like to ask, everyone that comes on the podcast is just, what are some books like, you wrote a fiction book, but do you read a lot of nonfiction books as well? Like, what's kind of your personal reading enjoyment look like?
I'm a big history nerd. I love reading David McCullough is my favorite. I've read everything he's written. I love the Sharp series by Bernard Cromwell. Those are fiction. The Flashman series by George MacDonald Fraser. Terrific, just wonderful, just pops. It's just beautiful. You know, nonfiction, you know, it's funny. Three of my favorite authors are wildly varying styles: C.S. Lewis, G.K. Chesterton, and Francis Schaeffer. I used to read a lot of science fiction. I don't read it anymore. I mean,
Okay.
I just and it's like kinda like, a friend of mine said that the golden age of science fiction is 17 years old, and I'm like, "Okay, that's kind of that yeah, that was me." But I read right now, I'm rereading the Ian Fleming, James Bond series, and it's like I read that in high school. I'm like, "Wow, these are" when he's good, he's spectacular.
Yes.
When he's off, he'll do is like he tries to do the native accents, like, "Oh, that's a little cringe."
Yeah. Yeah. No, interesting. I'm always fascinated what books people are interested in reading and adding to my list. And which leads me to my last question, Kevin. And
Mhm.
it's one again I ask everybody. You mentioned some authors and books that you enjoy reading, but is there one or two books that just have had an impact on your life where you're like, man, that book gave me just life advice or enjoyment than any other book? And what's, I guess, kind of the book that you would recommend to others if they were like, "Hey, Kevin, give me your best book recommendation," what would it be?
I'm gonna recommend 2.
Okay.
The first would be The Road Less Traveled by Dr. M. Scott Peck.
Mm,
A really good look at getting your mind right, and, it creating it's hard to explain, but he's a psychologist who basically says, "Look, we're tired, this is how you need to act."
yeah,
He was Jordan Peterson before Jordan Peterson was Jordan Peterson,
yeah,
without the controversy. And then the second one that made a really big impact on my life was Robert B. Parker's Mortal Stakes. It's one of his detective stories, and it's about point shaving in baseball and just the jock ethic and the code. You don't do stuff because it's not the right thing to do.
yeah,
You do stuff because and that laying out that it's actually not a bad thing to have that type of code. You know,
yeah, yeah. No, awesome. I haven't read either of those, but both of those sound really good, especially the baseball one.
if you start reading Parker's work, you go, oh, that's where he stole it from. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's So if you're gonna steal from the best.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Kevin, man, this has been such a pleasure. And again, thank you for sending me your book. I've got it posted on
Okay.
the website so people can go find it. And if they're interested in purchasing it, there's a link. It'll take you right to the Amazon page where they can purchase the book. Um, but Kevin, now that I know you've got some more books in the works to this series, as you get ready to release them, we definitely need to have you back on the podcast so we can have kind of a progressive conversation as these come out. And again, just kind of talk about, where you're at with your writing and each book. And it would be an honor to spotlight each of them.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, I would love to do that. I think for the next one, what I'm going to do is do the Martin Weir thing of releasing it a bit of a time on my website.
Okay.
Just to build some hype and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, and with the proviso like that's I don't write clean. And I'm like, okay, that chapter's finished. Now I'm done with it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back. Like, oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. I want to do that with that character, which means I'm gonna have to go back to chapter 2 and fix all that stuff there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've got your website link too, so I'll include that for anyone who wants to follow and make sure they stay up to date when you start dropping little nuggets, little previews of what's to come. And so, no, Kevin, again, thank you for taking the time to do this. And again, it's just an honor to be able to talk with authors like you and learn your story and learn your motivation to writing. And I think it makes people better people. I think better leaders, better understanding, and for enjoyment. There's just so many benefits to reading, and so just continue making good books and continue what you're doing. And I can't wait to follow your work and continue to spotlight it.
Well, that's very kind. Thank you very much.